Hey guys, it's Aaron. Today I want to turn my 3D print of Buckethead into a mold and then cast it in plastic. So last time we were here, I made these. These are my masters for molding. They're 3D printed and I got them all cleaned up already, got primer on them, and now I want to create a mold that I can pour plastic into and actually cast these things. First thing I did was I took these guys and glued them down using some hot glue onto a board. This is something that I could cut up and throw away when I was done. Really didn't need to worry about that. And I had to put something around them, something that I could pour the silicone into in order to make the mold. So for this I used a plastic cup for one piece, cut that up, and I used an old vitamin bottle for the other piece. This was nothing really special about this. These are just two cylindrical shapes I happen to have around to make the molds. And I glued those down onto the board also, making sure that the hot glue would prevent any silicone from pouring out or seeping out the bottom. All right, so right here before we go any further, I want to talk about one thing. That is the word silicone. It is a different word from the word silicon. Silicon is naturally occurring. It's basically what sand's made up of. It's a crystal, it's hard. I'm not a geologist by any means, but it happens, it's hard stuff. It's what Silicon Valley is named after because it's the material they use in a lot of computer parts. Silicon is hard things. Silicone is what I'm actually using to make a mold. It's soft. The difference is that E on the end. The E stands for squishy. So silicone makes a squishy mold that you can cast hard things in. Silicon is, yeah, sand, hard stuff, not something that you want to make a mold out of. So having said that, let's move on to actually making it. To create the actual mold, I used Smooth-On's Umu 30. It's a tin cure silicone rubber, and it is really easy to mix because you just mix it 1-to-1. There's a part A and a part B. Put equal amounts into a container, stir it up for a couple of minutes till it turns a nice even purple color. Then it's ready to pour over your masters. One of the things I learned is you want to pour this nice and tall, kind of get a real thin stream. That's going to force any bubbles that happen to show up out as it kind of comes down in that onto the master. You don't have to degas this. I guess it is possible. You could degas this in a vacuum chamber or something. I did not do that. It worked out perfectly fine. I poured it over, covered everything up to the top, both pieces, and then left them overnight. Next day when I came in and opened them up, this was a lot of fun. Silicone's cool because when it's all runny, it is kind of sticky, it sticks to stuff, but once it cures, the only thing that silicone will stick to is other silicone. So it was very easy to demold. I just kind of cut some pieces away and I had a mold. The helmet was easy. It popped right out of the mold, didn't have to do anything. The body was a little tougher. Because the silicone mold was a little bit thick, I did have to cut it down the side in order to release the master. I cut kind of a zigzag pattern. That way I wouldn't end up with a pronounced gap or a crease in it. That zigzag would possibly give me a little bit of a lip, a teeny bit of flash, but it'd be pretty easy to clean up. Once that was done, I had my two molds that I was ready to cast. So this is where I jumped in and started mixing up some plastic. For this, I used Smooth-On Smooth-Cast 300, which is a fast-setting white plastic. It actually doesn't mix 1-to-1 like the Umu, which is a little bit of a bummer. It's 100% of A to 90% of B by weight, which means I had to do some math and I had to use a scale, but I got through it all. I used the scale to get a 1:0.9 mix ratio, mixed it up inside of a cup, and poured that right into the mold. Right here is where a couple things could have gone a little better. This is a learning experience. I hadn't done this before. I've done a little bit of stuff with resin before, made some jewelry, that kind of stuff, but I've never actually cast anything in a mold. So this was new to me. So I did maybe have 4 or 5 things that I could have done better. And I didn't realize these until I actually cast that first piece. So the first thing I didn't do, I forgot release agent. I didn't spray this into the mold before I poured the plastic. So fortunately, it's a pretty simple mold and everything popped out real well, but ideally, you want to make sure you spray that in there so everything comes out real easy. So I didn't do that for the first one. So probably should have now. That's thing number one. The second thing was I mixed way too much plastic, like more than double what I actually needed to cast Buckethead. So I got done pouring and there was really nothing else to do. If I had multiple molds, I could have maybe filled more than one, but I ended up wasting about as much plastic as I actually used to cast Buckethead. So that was the second thing that could have gone better. Third was when I was mixing, I said I mixed it slow. I didn't mix it slow enough, and I did make some air bubbles. So I noticed them as I was pouring, and when I got done, the bubbles did kind of rise to the top, and it looked kind of like frothy milk, which was not a good look. So I probably should have gone a little slower on mixing. Fourth thing I did was I ended up pulling the cast too early. So I was trying to be smart about it. I had my leftover plastic and I thought, well, I'll just go inside while this cures and I'll bring the cup in, and when the cup's cured finally, I'll come out and pull the stuff out of the mold. It sounded really good, but this stuff cures with a thermal reaction, so the heat is actually what causes the liquid to turn into a solid. It's probably a good 10 to 15 degrees warmer inside the house than it is out here in my shop. So what ended up happening was I had this cup that I was using and I went, ooh, it's solid, it's done. I came out to the shop, pulled Buckethead out, and both the bucket and the body ended up with these weird, ugly, old man, wrinkly things. So you can see that right now. It was not a good look for Buckethead. So those are the big things. The one last thing that probably could have gone better, I would do a little bit different maybe, is that seam that I put in, that zigzag. It did not make a big problem or a big impression, but I probably should have put that along his back rather than on his arm, just because it'd be easier to sand out along the big flat surface of his back. So those are the 5 things that could have gone better with this, and something I learned from, and the next time I cast this, which happened a few minutes after that pour cast, went a whole lot better. So the second one and the third one came out great. They pulled out of the mold with no problem whatsoever, and they looked good. There was a couple little tiny bubbles. I probably am still stirring a little bit too quick, but they looked great. The final thing to do with this before I would call this finished was to do a little drilling. I drilled 2 holes into the sides of the bucket. This is where the handle would fit in. And then a larger hole on the underside of the bucket where the bucket would fit onto the neck. I ended up making these a little bit loose because I did, like I said before, I wanted the ability to kind of move the bucket around and let him move his head certain ways or maybe pose him a little bit. The final piece I had to put on here was the handle. My thought was to use some thicker wire or something like that, but I really didn't have anything on hand that was going to work perfectly, so I ended up grabbing a coat hanger. The size was just about right for fitting into the holes on the side of the bucket, and I had it. It was simple. It was just laying around. I cut it up. I used a wooden dowel to shape it, and that fit right into the holes just about perfectly. So in the end, I got this, which is Buckethead. And I mean, I'm kind of like stupidly happy about this. This was really cool. I was so excited that I had this. I mean, I can tip his head around. I know he's not an action figure, he's not fully articulate or anything, but he's pretty cool looking, and I'm really excited that I got to make this. I learned a lot of stuff too about casting along the way. Next step for Buckethead is he looks good, but he's a little pale. Oh man, I didn't even try to do that. That just happened. Buckethead, a little pale. Anyhow, so I'm gonna need to paint him. So next week, I'm gonna take him and give him a paint job and make him look really cool, even cooler than he looks now. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you next time when we give him some color. Thanks. Thank you very much for watching. To be notified of new videos as they come out, subscribe and click the bell down below. If you like this video, give me a like. If you have some other ideas for cool things that you'd like to see me make, leave a comment down below. I love interacting with you guys and hearing what you think of my videos, how I can make them better, and what else I could do. Thank you.